Since the COVID outbreak, many people's personal space expectations has changed. Currently, I get offended if someone I'm not familiar with comes within 6 to 8 feet of me. This is a much further distance than what I would have found acceptable back in February, before the pandemic, but now it's genuinely just not worth the risk. Judy Burgon, a communication scientist, defined personal space as the invisible variable volume of space surrounding an individual that defines that individual's preferred distance from others. She believed the size and shape of that space largely depends on the cultural norms. In the 1960s, Edward Hall, an anthropologist from the University of Illinois, coined the term proxemics to refer to the study of people's use of space. He said Americans have four proxemic zones. The first is intimate, which is 0 to 18 inches. The second is personal, which is 18 inches to 4 feet. The third is social, which is 4 feet to 12 feet. And the final is 12 feet to 25 feet. Hall felt Americans were insensitive to the spatial customs of other cultures. Burgon rebutted Hall's advice with her nonverbal expectancy violation model, stating, under some circumstances, violating social norms and personal expectations is a superior strategy to conformity. The theory suggests noticeable deviations from what we expect may cause arousal, and in that we would review the nature of our relationship with the person who acted in a curious way. But Burgon's initial experiments did not support her theory, and rather than give up, she determined some of the assumptions might need to be tested and reevaluated. Ultimately, she abandoned the idea of a threat threshold and softened her idea that violating our expectations would cause arousal, and therefore review our relationship with the person. She removed some irrelevant features and streamlined her model and developed a complete theory. Originally, her model was too confined with the nonverbal expectancy violation and was only concerned with special violations. She later concluded the proxemics behavior is part of an interconnected system of non-linguistic cues. She applied the model to the nonverbal cues such as facial expressions, eye contact, touch, and how the body was leaning. She then dropped the nonverbal qualifier, so the theory is now referred to as expectancy violation theory. Expectancies applies significant influences on our interaction patterns and our impressions of one another and the outcome. Violations may distract the recipient and shift attention to the violator and the meaning of the violation. People who you may not know well are safer engaging in violations and more likely to receive positive reactions than those you do not know well and do not care for. Furthermore, when the violation is not clear or could have many interpretations that are not all positive or negative, then the reward can be especially significant. There are three core concepts of this theory. Expectancy, which is when people predict what will happen rather than what they desire. The following aspect helps gauge what people may do. Context begins with cultural norms. In Germany, 3 feet is too close, but in Saudi Arabia, it is much too far and would therefore be considered insulting. Relationship factors that include similarity, familiarity, liking, and relative status are also considered. The communicator characteristics, which include age, sex, place of birth, and demographic facts, are considered. And finally, violation variance, which refers to the positive or negative value placed on unexpected behavior, regardless of who does it. Does the action make the person feel uncomfortable? When someone acts in an unpredictable manner, we switch to an evaluative mode. First, we try to interpret the meaning, and then we decide if it's okay or not. Some violations meanings some violation meanings are easy to spot, but others can be taken in a positive or negative way. The communicator reward variance is the sum of positive and negative attributes brought to the encounter, plus the potential to reward or punish in the future. Burgon says that the nature of the violation influenced the response more than the reward potential. This is especially true of something that would be considered very positive or very negative, no matter who did it. Burgon recognizes that her theory did not account for reciprocal behavior. This was so troubling, she reassessed her single-sided view and transformed it into a duo adaptation. The result was her crafting the interaction adaptation theory with two of her former students. People were ultimately made to adapt to each other. One of the largest criticisms of this theory was that no matter how many times she adjusted or redesigned, it never quite works well in practice. Almost every verifiable test she runs has mixed results. Other theorists find the theory very useful when they attempt to understand expectancy violation in digital technology. For example, they found it predictable that most people find it offensive to use a cell phone during an intimate or serious moment between two people. The theory meets the other 5 criteria for a good scientific theory. It advances the reasonable explanation of effects. The latest revisions made it very simple, or relatively simple, and the testable hypothesis that she's willing to adjust when the quantitative research does not support it. And then finally, it offers practical advice. With the current situation everyone is experiencing today, with the pandemics and the riots, I believe it would be a good theory to share with people so people are not offended or take it the wrong way when someone gets upset or gives them a look when they violate their personal boundaries. This is all I have today, and thank you very much for spending your time.